So I still haven't got caught up on my internet stuff. So there are no descriptions and indexes on the videos. There probably won't be again today, and I might not get to it for another week or two. So, but normally, if you go back through the old stuff, you'll see down at the bottom there are links to number one, the video itself is indexed with chapters, and then there's links that goes out and tells you the big index of what we've done for the last 3 years or whatever. So that would normally be there, and right now it's not, and probably won't be for the next couple meetings. So let's see, what did I do? So I got moved out of my old place. I got sort of moved into my new place, and partway along the line, I was just cramming stuff in the garage here because I didn't want to have to carry every box through 3 or 4 security doors and up and down stairs. So I piled everything in the garage. And before I got this place, I said, "Is there a problem with water in the garages?" The guy says, "Oh no, if you keep your garage doors shut, there's no problem, no problem with that." Well, so I just started cramming stuff in there, putting cardboard boxes right on the ground. And about a week
Ooh.
later, it rained really hard, and I found out, oh no, there's just a river of water that runs across the floor in the garage. So it probably destroyed a lot of stuff, but I don't know. So I went out today. The last few days, I've been going out the garage and just grabbing stuff and bringing it in the house and piling it in here. So last week I showed Al and Bob my what it looks like in my living room. While I got like twice as much stuff piled up there now, and my garage is still, obviously got lots of more loads to bring in. So my plan is to take stuff out of the garage, bring in the house, and then sort it and throw away a whole bunch of stuff. So that's just kind of where I'm at right now. That's what I've been doing. And other than that, I don't really have any progress other than, again, as I look at boxes, oh, there's that thing, or that would be fun to build a robot out of. So it's kind of inspiring in that fashion. And once I start going through the piles here, I can start organizing stuff and say, this is the box of robot stuff. And I'll say, hey, I should bolt that of my robot any day now. So that maybe some good will come of all this. I don't know. Just the fact if I can get rid of 90% of my stuff, that's going to be good in itself. So I only got another year till I have to decide about moving again. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So you can only stay there for 1 year?
Well, I had to sign a 1 year lease, so I have to stay here a minimum of 1 year, and then after that,
Oh,
it may
okay.
turn to a monthly lease, in which case they could screw me again like the previous people did, or they may say you have to sign on our 6 month to a year lease or whatever. So anyway, I've got almost a full year to put off and not do anything. So and so anyway, again that's where I'm at, and that's all I've got to say for this week. So whoever wants to go next, Ken.
Go ahead, Al.
Okay. Last time we spoke, I was messing around with my GPS and trying to get RTK organized. It seemed to be a little bit easier on Windows than it did on my RPIs because of having to get some libraries installed correctly. So I made a little bit of progress. I'm still not exactly where I want to be, but I have, and I posted this on Slack, I have been able to get RTK fix both using RTK to go and I guess you call it subscribing or logging on to a mount point that's about 15 miles away. I believe it's at Carnegie Mellon University. I happen to be in Pittsburgh. So I got that to work. I also am getting my base station, able to get RTK fix on my local base station. Something that I sort of discovered in the last few minutes is this happens to be output from one particular program that I've got. And what's not easily apparent is to know that I'm getting one of the rover puts out 2 sentences, a GGA and an RMC sentence, and I was tracking the output rate. And when it was running at this time with the RTCM data coming in, the GPS was outputting at, about 11 hertz or close to 11 hertz. A little bit above, I was having trouble with the COM port and I was getting GGA sentences, nothing changed whatsoever on the GPS. The only difference was the COM port didn't seem to be working. That was sending the RTCM correction data, and the GPS was outputting at 24 hertz. So that's something that I think is deserving of some more research. And you can see this is the data field where that number 1 is. It was reporting GPS fix, but that's why I knew that there was something wrong with the correction. So I went down and effectively rebooted the port, and I was getting status code 4, which is RTK fix on that GGA sentence. So anyway, making progress, slow progress. Printed out 3D printed some posts to try to mount some of my boards to my electronic board, but was mostly focused on getting this GPS stuff organized. So that's where I'm at. And on the
Well, before you move on there, it could be that your receiver calculates the fix differently, whether it's got RTCM data coming in or not. So it could be once the data starts coming in, that it changes from 24 hertz to 10 hertz. Do you know what rate you're sending the correction data, or is this from your base station or from the Pittsburgh site?
both base stations are sending at 1 hertz. The main message is at 1 hertz. There's some other, I guess they call them ephemeris messages that are at 0.1 hertz, or every 10 seconds.
Okay.
But most of the correction data is coming in at 1 hertz.
So one thing you could try once you get this set up and running, if it says you got a fix and it says it's 10 hertz, just blatantly unplug your correction data and give it, 2 or 3 minutes and see, does it go back up to fast speed? Because it could be that once it starts doing the extra calculation, that either slows it down, or it's maybe something built into their software just says, if we have correction data, we want to run it at a different speed. I don't know. Again, going back to look at the manual, is that the board that it's the board from Taiwan that has no manual with it?
That's why I'm smiling. Yes, this is the SkyTrack PX1172. Yeah, they're a little bit stingy on documentation.
I'm not sure how much experimentation it would take to find that out, but that's why I say, just simply yank the cable when it's running right, and then let it drop back to a regular GPS and see if the conversion rate or the fix rate increases when you do that. That might be an indication right there of what you need to know.
Yeah, that's really good input. That would, if I were in Vegas, I would put money on your hypothesis that with the RTCM data, it slows it down and it needs more processing, but it's a good test.
So it's either because it needs more processing, or simply because they declared, well, he really wants it at 10 hertz if he wants accurate data. So it could be, and since you don't have a manual to tell you that, you're not really sure. So hold on a second here. Okay, so I'm back again. So yeah, just experiment with it and see what different things will affect that. And do you think you could run with 10 hertz? Is that where you're running before on your stuff, or?
I actually think I was running.
Uh-oh, he locked up. He must have turned on his correction data. Well, we seem to have lost Al, and something I wanted to talk about, something I talked about before we started recording was, oh, he's coming back now. But anyway, before we were recording, I was talking about the fact that last week I had mentioned that when you run RTK-Lib and you send data out to the server, you have to tell it where you are. So in my stuff, I will put a a -P command, and -P says that's your position. And then you put in latitude and longitude and altitude, and that tells it where you are, so it knows which data to send you. And then I was saying I thought there was a different way to do that. So I was reading through the comments. So if you go to let's see, chat. Let's see, how can I get this? Copy this. Oh, again, let's see, Control
By the
C.
way, because my laptop
There he
got a
is.
blue screen of death and it's still rebooting.
Okay. So I'll put this back in the chat again because I don't think it'll show up otherwise. Well, this is going to show up if I put it in later anyway. So how can I do this? I'll put it there, and no matter what I do, it's not going to work right. So anyway, let me share my screen here. I forgot to do that. Share screen. So if you go out to RTK-Lib Explorer website, and and again, I'll put a link to this in the description eventually. But if you go out to the website, he's talking about, how do I know? I'm about halfway down the screen here. And so it's under the building RTK-Lib code in Linux, which I think last week we actually went out and looked at this stuff. And I was noticing that down in, because I was saying last time that it's always good to read the comments on this stuff to see what people are saying. So if you come down here to, it was let's say find February. So on February 1st, 2021 at 10:57 a.m., this Raphael Chow made a comment, and he said he was digging through the manual and he found that instead of using a -P where you put the latitude and longitude, instead if you put a -B1, that tells RTK-Lib to grab your position from the GPS and send that back to the server to keep the server happy. So he gives an example down here. Here's the thing where you said it send the data out. He's got assuming you can see my cursor, there's a -P, 41.5, 100.1, and a 00. And that's latitude, longitude, and altitude. It says instead of doing that, you can put a -B1 instead of doing that. And then that goes out to your GPS receiver you're running and grabs the latitude and longitude and automatically sends that to the server. And I thought there was a way to do it, and I'd never actually tracked it down. So he said, yes, that indeed works. And he also says he also got rid of the -N1, and I thought that was the update rate. So it's like number of samples per second or something. And on mine, I had a -1000. He had a -1. So one of us is confused. So he thinks that that's a number in seconds, and I thought it was a number in milliseconds. And that's something else I could go look up someday. But mine, if I say -N1000, mine works. And I don't know, what else to say about it other than, he says he found this in the manual. So go dig through the manual and these commands, and you can look those up. Now, this thing about the position is good and bad. It's good because if I were to go out in my front yard and run, rather than grabbing an arbitrary point and sending that to the server, you can put in this -B1, and that way if I drive to the other side of town or drive to a different town and turn it on, if I were to put in just an arbitrary location out in my front yard, well, that's not going to work in the other place. So you drive somewhere else and run it. As soon as you turn it on, it grabs the position from the GPS, it sends that to the server, and it's going to send you the appropriate data. Basically, it's going to decide which base station of theirs to send you data from is what that's for. On the other hand, you may want to specifically specify that, because back when I started playing with this stuff, there's a guy who is either lived in northern Iowa or southern Minnesota, or the other way around, and he found that he could get the correction data from the other state by specifying, he had to specify a position within the state. So let's say he lives in northern Iowa and he wants the Minnesota correction data. He had to use the -P command and say, no, I'm really in Minnesota, and then it would send him data. If he told him that it is in Iowa, it wouldn't send him any data, just simply because, partly because a state boundary, they might just simply complain about that. But that's a case where that's why you might want to be able to specify a point. And this number doesn't have to be close. It just has to know. It finds the closest base station to that and sends you the data from that. So you might want to go either way here, either, specify a specific point, say in my old place, I just went out in the front yard and just measured a point, said, okay, I'm just going to use that number forever. And that kept everybody happy. And now when I move to the new place, I'm probably about a mile away from where I was. It would probably still work just fine to use that old location. But if I put in this -B1, it's going to go out to the GPS and say, oh, you're here now. And that will tell the server that, and then it would send me the appropriate data. So I don't know if you're running your own base station, it may not care. But if you're running the big commercial ones that are run, in our case, that's run by the state Department of Transportation, and you have to tell it what part of the state you're in for this to work. So anyway, that's something I ran across. And as I say, if you go out to RTK-Lib Explorer and simply search for the message building RTK-Lib code in Linux, this page should show up, and then go down. It's like February 1st is where that comment was. Or it's always good to read through all the comments, because there's all kinds of interesting stuff that shows up here that may or may not be useful to you, but you may not realize it's useful until you read it and think, oh, I need to know that. And that way it's good to do that. So I just wanted to point that out. Since we were talking about last week, I thought it was possible. Well, here, somebody in that exact message we were looking at last week in the comments, somebody says, oh yeah, you can do that. So there you go.
Neat.
And let's see. So Al's back. I forgot he was talking about his do you recall where we were?
I was just going to mention the code that I put out there, which again is back to the RTK getting correction data, but the link is in Slack, and I'm on my phone, so it's not, I don't know how to do all that sharing stuff on my phone.
Okay.
And my blue screen laptop is still booting.
Do you want me to pull up Slack and display something here? I was going to do that for Bob anyway. So let me.
Well, sure. The last message that I posted, which was just like, I don't know, 6 hours ago.
One in random.
Yes.
It says that. So let me say share again. Screen. And I guess this one. So here's that message, and it says, let me get my.
So it is here. Press on here.
What was that?
At the end of the paragraph, it says code is here.
Yeah.
That's a live link.
Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to show the message that he had posted, and if people can read that, he says, yeah, he did it. And then here's the code. So if I click on that, and this is out on,
just put it on GIST. Scroll down a little bit.
so what
So stop there. I put a little bit of a README file there, and so scroll up just a smidgen.
how to use?
Yeah, so this script is going to go out to RTK to go. It's a standard port 2101. The mount point is specific to me. It's near that particular one is near Pittsburgh. You also have to put a username. And for password, I was leaving blank and had to fight with that, and ended up putting none. That worked. You'd have to update your serial port. And this is going to get correction data from that and jam it into whatever port you specify. I fought with getting connectivity to this RTK to go, so I had this parameter test that helps you through the connectivity process and sort of prints off the header messages and whatnot, and confirms that the mount point is actually there and available. So if somebody were actually going to try to use this, you'd start with finding your mount point, putting it in there, selecting test, and just to make sure that it's all connecting first. But anyway, that's all out there. The code is below that maker or that README file. If you just kept scrolling down a little bit. But this does not require that STR code. It just uses those libraries that are there. So it's sort of generic in that sense.
Okay. So this is on Al's GitHub, and you probably can't read the links up there, but anyway, that's where it's at. I think there's links in these descriptions I keep talking about. I think there's a link to his stuff, but since I haven't done this for server, if you back up a couple of months, then you can see all those links that I keep talking about that I have been too lazy here to add lately. So here, I want to verify we're still recording. Yes, we are recording. I put it on pause about 6 times now, so I just want to make sure that I didn't screw up, and we are recording. So the other point was, we should mention this point. If you're not familiar, RTK to go is a site out on the internet that is free to use. You can build your own base station, and then you can send your correction data to this RTK to go. And then anybody that's in your area can log into that and grab your correction data and use it. So that's what he is doing here. And or is this your base station, or is this the one from Carnegie Mellon that you're using on RTK to go?
That script is configured to pull the Carnegie Mellon data.
Okay. So the thing is, if you can figure their website out, which I found is very hard to do, you can go out and you can search for, your area and find out if there's sites in your area that are broadcasting. If there are, then you can go through, as Al has done here, and connect to their site and get their correction data. So that's a different option than building your own base station, or in my case, I'm using the Department of Transportation data in Minnesota. And there's various states that will put the data out for free. The Department of Transportation will. And I think so Pennsylvania apparently does not do that for free, so that's why he had to find somebody else who was broadcasting, and he was lucky enough to find something that they're broadcasting, and it does seem to be working for him. So that's just some comments I wanted to make on that.
My advice is, if you get to this point, call Jeff or I, and we'll do a download on how we got there.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. So do you have anything else, Al?
No, I'm all set. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, Bob, do you want to make comments on anything?
Al, how long did it take you to get to the point you're at now with this RTK stuff?
If I were doing it over again, it would be a very short time period. I mean, I've done it twice now with 2 different sets of GPSs, so it took a long time to get to this point. And by long, I would say, off and on 3 years. But I mean, it's like learning to ski. Once you've done it, it's easy.
Okay.
And showing somebody else would be like a piece of cake.
Yeah,
I mean, and all you need is a place to get correction data, either your own or a nearby place, like Jeff has found, or RTK to go.
Okay.
There's a map that you can pull up that we posted last week. If you pulled up that map and you had an RTK to go location within 20 or 30 miles of you, that's all you need, as long as it's reliable. Then you just need one simple GPS. I think I looked at our Do Simple, and their F9Ps I think are like $260 at the moment, I think.
Well, that's not bad.
And
Actually,
if you want to go Chinese, I can get you there for $150.
Yeah, but after tariffs, it'll be 300.
It's Taiwan. It's not. It's I think Chinese. I meant I should have been more specific. Taiwan.
Well, even the RG Simple stuff may be affected by tariffs too. I haven't followed that stuff close enough to know what's going on. So I assume that's all just going to magically go away any day now. But as it gets more and more embarrassing, eventually even the main guy is going to be so embarrassed that he's going to say, "Oh, I was just kidding. I was just joking the whole time." So,
Yeah.
so I don't know what's going to happen on that.
It'll work itself out.
Just keep her fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you get to a point of, if you don't have a GPS, there are options, and they're not too bad.
Okay.
Well, let's see. We were done looking at OWL stuff on Slack, right? Okay, so so are we going to move on to Bob now? Should I pull up
Well,
the?
I don't have anything. I've been cutting wood all week.
Okay, well, I'll bring up a picture of your stuff you're doing anyway. So let's see. How do I
Okay.
do back here? Say share screen. Go here.
And once we're done with Bob, I have a GPS question for you, Jeff.
So what was that?
I said, once we're done with Bob, don't let me forget. I want to ask you about GPS antennas.
Okay. So this is assuming you can see this. This is
Yeah.
Bob's post to Slack.
Yeah.
And of course I can't make it do anything again. There we go.
There you go.
And if you just kind of want to narrate what you said here.
Oh, okay. That wheel that you see, that was an impulse buy. I had no idea it would match up, but it was like $6 at Menards down in Elk River. And I thought maybe if I could make it fit, I could cut more slots. But luckily, the slots and the fins match up perfectly. So I'll squeeze those together. And instead of the motor being standing up, I have to rotate it on the side, like on that picture. And that little 1x1 there is just to hold the motor in place for now. I did remove the blocks for the axle, and I have to cut them down. If we go to the top of the plywood platform, yeah, right over in there, you can barely make that out. But that block of wood that's holding the axle, I have to move in to the left so the motor gets tucked underneath the platform. Excuse me. So I've got that disconnected, and I have to cut the block down. So that'll be the major thing for this week. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see. You can see the two Phillips screws. Yeah, right there you can see a vertical line. That's the piece I have to cut out so that the motor sits back in and is locked in with that remaining 2x4. And then you'll see the two Phillips screws up on top. Those are pulled out now. And the 2x4 block will get moved in the direction of that arrow. So I'll move that block over. Yep. And I'll move that block over just where the arrow points. And then hopefully the motor and all the gears will be tucked under the platform with the wheels sticking out. There you go. That's a better. And I've got some temporary dots where the block has to go. And then that'll be hopefully a miniature of where the Barbie Jeep is right now, with caster wheels on the back with a differential drive. The axle, I have to do something there, either find another axle of 1/2 inch, or I found some old bearings that I can slip on and try and adapt it up to 1/2 inch. So, and then I'll have to come up with some way of of capping the end of that axle so the wheels don't come off. So we'll be going into town today, so maybe I can find something at a store.
Yeah, you can probably just buy a 1/2 inch, extruded rod at a hardware store. Say,
Yeah.
they call cold rolled or whatever they call that. Just make sure it's long enough to fit that. What I do on the ends, typically, I will just take a. Let's see, let's do this. Da, da, da. I'll just come
Yeah.
here on that axle. I'll just drill a hole through and put a cotter pin.
Okay.
That's a convenient way to do that.
Yeah.
And you might be able to get some of these like press on things that will lock onto there. But
Yep.
yeah, as I say, I just like to use I drill a hole and put a cotter pin through it.
Yeah, I'll
It's a
probably,
fairly easy way to do it. And you might even want to leave it a little bit longer. And if you want, you can put a washer or 2 on there before you put the cotter pin on. That might be another
sure.
suggestion.
Well,
But
I found all my toolboxes. Now I just have to go through and where did I put what and where.
Yeah, I got that problem. The other thing you can do when you put that wheel in, put some grease on that axle and then go ahead and put it on, and that should
Okay.
work well enough for what you're doing. You
Oh,
might want to take a wheel with you, so when you buy a rod, make sure it's not slightly too large. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's not going to fit on there. So,
good idea. I think I will.
or unless you have a caliper, which again you wouldn't be able to find it. So
I'll just take the wheel and
yeah. And I was surprised on that wheel when I looked at this. When you're showing this here, where you're showing the slots in that thing, I thought
Yeah.
there was some fancy thing on a Barbie wheel that dealt with. And then when I saw the wheel you use, that just looks like a lawnmower wheel off the self-propelled lawnmowers. Because you can look on Amazon or eBay and look up those kind of wheels. That's it's exactly what they look like.
Yep.
So so it surprised me that
Yeah,
did fit
that
like
was just dumb luck that turned out that way.
Yeah. And probably the story is when they built the Barbie Jeep, somebody said, "Oh, here's a lawnmower wheel that I got at home. Let's build it just like that." So that's probably why it fits on there.
So, one of these days I'll get around to taking that gearbox apart, clean it out for real, and put it back together. But not this week.
Yep. I know how that goes.
I would put that down low on your list, my son.
Just along it turns.
Yeah,
That's
I'd
right.
probably never get around to actually cleaning it out. I just clean up the outside so it doesn't make a mess and just go with what you got. But
Yeah.
But if you're bored someday, yeah, you can dig into that and see.
Yep.
So let's see, was there how do I get out of here and go to this? I thought maybe you posted a second one here. Is that
Oh.
no? Okay,
No.
so I guess that was all that you had posted. There was a picture of that.
Yep.
And as you're noticing that, as you say, you're building a smaller version of your Barbie Jeep. That's why I keep telling people, I keep building my stuff smaller and smaller because it's hard to transport. It's hard to, especially if you can try to run it in the house. It's going to be small enough that you can maneuver around without banging into things. And
Yeah.
you might go look at your checklist and find out how many times you're allowed to knock lamps over and bang into things, and keep that in mind before you get started here. That will catch up to you. So
I don't think I have enough points built up for that.
well, I'm sure somebody else would be keeping track for you. So that was my point. That
Oh, I imagine there's somebody else.
Did you buy new furniture, or are you bringing your old furniture with you?
No, we brought all our own furniture, but we have new appliances. And what's amazing is that everything is Wi-Fi now. The stove, the refrigerator, and we decided to go all electric. So we've got in-floor heat, but we do have a fireplace. So next winter, I hope to try and heat the house as much as I can with wood. But that in-floor heat is really nice. I run around in stocking feet and feel comfortable. Excuse me. And tomorrow, I'm going into phase 2 of Murphy's Law. The contractor and subcontractor is going to come out and rework our septic holding tanks. Evidently, somebody drove a piece of machinery too close to the tanks, and it broke the seal on the risers. So all the groundwater has been going into our 3,000 gallon storage, and we've had it pumped twice now. 2 times 3,000 gallons at almost $300. So we haven't had to pay for it. So hopefully I won't have to mess around with that next week. But
Out of curiosity, Bob, do you know how much insulation they put under your slab on your radiant floor heat?
quite a bit. I think it was there was a sand base, and then what do you call it? It's a system for venting gas, radon. You have to have a radon system under the slab to vent the gas. And then I think there's at least 2 inches of foam on top of that, and then the cement pad. And the county says you have to have, if your garage is attached to the house, it has to be heated so it doesn't break up. So we've got in-floor heat in the garage, which we keep down to about 50. That's kind of nice to walk out there in stocking feet and horse around. I hate to see what the electric bill is going to be. We haven't had a typical electric bill yet. The highest one was over 400 when the contractor was here, and so we have no idea what it's going to cost to cook and heat this place.
Nice. Radiant floor heating. That's very nice.
Yeah. And we've got it on the 2nd floor, so in dead of winter I can turn that on and use my work upstairs. But then you got to navigate the steps, so that's why I went with the small demo to fool around. So I'll just pick it up, make a module, kind of like a R2D2 droid, where you just take it off of one platform and put it on the other one. Then I imagine I can carry up and down the steps.
Small is good.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got.
I'm all set. I
Oh,
was going to ask you, Jeff, about antennas. If I have a GGA sentence and it's saying, hey, it's 20, I'm getting 27 satellites. Do you know how to figure out which of the constellations those are without using the OEM software? Is there a programmatic way in Python to figure out which of those constellations are being seen?
go look up. Here, let me just pull it up here and see if we can figure this out. I got that. I got that. So let's go here and say.
And the reason I'm asking while you're searching is these eBay, GNSS no name antennas. I was just curious which constellations they're actually able to see.
Messages.
I mean, I can do the research. I thought you might, since
Well,
you're all knowing, you might know off the top of your
there
head.
are, I think it's like an SV, it's something about satellite vehicle is what the message is. And I just want to find an example here where they show you all that stuff. If you pull it up on your OEM software, it's going to list all of these things and tell you which satellites it's running and all this kind of stuff. But that's all coming off a NEMA sentence that it puts out. So you just have to go in your unit, turn on these. Let's go here. Just as an example.
I may have a screen print from.
We'll find SV. So probably the GSV satellites in view, and it's got it's got like 20 numbers that pop up on that. So it well here, since I know what it's called now, GSV, let's go back and say I'll just grab somebody's here. And you'll notice here, it comes out, there's 3, 4, there's a whole bunch of them coming out here. So
So those are the
it'll,
individual satellites.
but it packs several on a line, but then they run out of space. So they put out several messages. So it'll be a big burst come out and all this stuff will show up. And here's all the stuff they tell you. So what specifically are you looking for there?
Well, let me share my screen. So this is a screen clip of I was trying to figure out, so which satellites, which systems is my cheap eBay antennas able to see, is really what I was trying to answer for myself. And it looks like I'm getting, in this particular clip, this is at Galileo maybe, and 1, 2, 3, 4 from Beidou or Beidou, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 from GPS, and that looks like a different shade, glossness or something. So it looks like my cheap eBay antennas are able to see 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was just trying to confirm that.
And I'm not sure it. Basically, when you buy the antenna, you have to get the one that's is L1 and L2 and L5, whatever. Yeah, that kind of stuff has to match. And then probably the number that you will see is actually based on just how sensitive the antenna is, which I'm not sure you're going to find that out without, just getting one and trying it. But if you go dig through.
But in this, I mean, I know you don't know my OEM software, but this is a screen print from the OEM software. Don't you think these numbers represent something about signal strength or something about from each
Yeah,
of these
I'm pretty sure
satellites?
that one of those will tell you that. If you scroll over to the right, do they tell you what those mean, or maybe
No,
not?
it's just a screen print from
Okay. But it could be if you go out, say, just go out the internet and say, show me pictures of somebody else's software, like say the U Center as the one that uBlocks has, and they'll probably show you some fairly elaborate pictures there. And if you dig through, because you can go into say like on if you're running the uBlock software and you go in there and look, it'll show you pictures like that. It'll show you, you pull up one, it shows you like the globe, and it shows you where the satellites are in the sky. So that's one indication, or it gives you a big chart that says, these are the United States satellites, these are European satellites, blah, blah, blah. And they list those out. And then you can go into the actual messages and you can pull up. And typically on mine, if I go and look at it, it'll say, oh, I can currently see like 62 satellites, or it says 62 satellites are in view, but I'm actually using like 10 or something like that. And I don't know how they decide that, if it's signal strength or position or whatever, but so there's all kinds of information buried in all these cute little messages that the thing puts out. But
Yeah, I
back to
would
your
have
point, buying an antenna, I'm not sure, how all that's going to relate.
Yeah, and this is the OEM software was just called GNSS Viewer, and it only is programmed at the moment to output these 2 sentences. I think the other screen that I got was from the base station. And so I don't get an Earth view or the satellite stuff because I don't have that GSV.
Do you know how to turn those on?
That's such a simple question. Do I know how to turn those on? No.
Everything says query. Is that maybe
Well, query to ask and configure to program.
okay? So it's something about satellite view. Once you turn that on, I think that the thing in the middle there that shows you the number of satellites and signal strength will come on, and I think your globe down there that will start showing you where those are. But right offhand, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But there might be a section that says configure. There's NEMA message interval, but it's something about you want to turn NEMA messages on and off. Oh, that go back to that. That looked real promising.
message type. It just has NEMA message or binary message.
So click on NEMA message and then update to SRAM accept. But there's got to be something that says turn, individual messages on and off, and you just have to go dig for that, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's that one about satellite view is the one that's going to give you, all this wonderful information. And then on the U-block stuff, you can say, basically you got the stuff that displays it on the screen, and you got something where you can go out and say query all the messages, and it gives you big tables of all this stuff that tells you all kinds of really wonderful information that I would never have any use for. So.
Yeah, so this is why my
And maybe right there, if you go down, if you can find the one that's what you want. So GSS, just right there. It's a GSV about 5 down or so. Right there.
says
So,
query it, and
so
it comes
it's
over here and it says 0 seconds.
it sits about the interval. So
Yeah,
let's see.
the interval is at 0 seconds, which means it's not enabled.
So if you can change that to say 1 second and see if that everything starts showing up then.
See, Bob, this is why mine cost, $80 and others cost 300.
Yikes.
And this is also why the learning curve is so long, because you have to go dig all this crap out and try to figure out how it works. Because as Al says, he's maybe got over 3 years of time into this. I've got a lot more than that. This goes way back to
Yeah.
About 6 generations back on GPS when I was trying to track all this stuff. And
Oh no.
Okay, so here, if I change, this is going to let me increase the number of sentences.
so when it says GSV interval, just
Yeah.
change that to something other than 0 and what's it do? Aha, there you go.
Nice.
Now you see all these messages are, all the different message types pop up.
Nice graphic.
And the one that's a globe down there, if you watch it long enough, it leaves little trails behind it. See on the left there, the one for the number 24 that just popped up, you can see it's leaving a trail behind it. So as you watch this over time, it shows you, where these are going, and they just seem to be going all over the place if you go if you watch it for a while, because these are low Earth satellites. It's not like the ones for television, the geosynchronous ones. They're at like 23,000 miles out, and they don't move. They just stay in the same, as the Earth turns, they're turning at the same speed. But these are like, I don't know, several hundred or maybe several hundred miles, like 200 miles high or something, and they're in view for like 20 minutes or something. So you've got all these satellites out there, and there's a number somewhere that says satellites in view, and then there's another number that says total satellites, and then it'll say here's a number of how many we're actually using. So all these other weird numbers that basically you don't have to know that stuff. You just turn it on, and once it's configured, it works. But there's all kinds of funny things going on here that it's interesting to know, and it's interesting to dig through this stuff, but it's way more complicated than I usually want to know.
Looks pretty crowded up there.
So you think my cheap eBay antenna, wherever I'm getting a bar, it's able to see that constellation?
Yes. Some of those, the little thing at the bottom is in red and there's no bar on it. So apparently it determines at this point in time, those satellites are visible and they could be used. But if it doesn't have a single signal strength, then it just shows, no signal bar popping up. So I say it's kind of touchy there on the BDS, which is the Beidou or Baidu.
Yeah.
Chinese one, they're popping in and out. That's why if I have to sacrifice one, I'll usually turn theirs off and just leave Galileo and GLONASS and GPS. But And again, depending which OEM software you're looking at here to look at the stuff, again, you have to analyze all this stuff and try to figure out what to do with it. So,
Cool.
and some of the stuff, if you go back to ROS agriculture stuff, I'm sitting in the back room at work and I fired up some demos. So I had all this kind of stuff for the U-block stuff. And I had, various things that I was trying to track and trying to show at the time. So if you go back to the index for ROS agriculture, just type in GPS or U-blocks or F9P or whatever, then it'll show you. Yeah, another good thing I mentioned in my README file and all that stuff, it says search for presentation, because a lot of times I went to the trouble to say Jeff gives a presentation on this U-blocks stuff or whatever. So that's just something else if people are interested. And I may or may not have done this on our new stuff, the lawn tractor stuff, but you've got 2 indexes out there you can search and find all that stuff. And as far as I know, all the ROS agriculture stuff is still there. It's just everything got taken off the YouTube index. So if you go to my stuff and it says, oh, here on this date, here's the YouTube video where it's talking about this. If you copy and paste that link into a browser, it should bring those videos up and play them. At least the last I checked, that actually works. So that's just more stuff if you're interested in the background on this stuff and all this kind of nonsense. So
Yeah.
which is the whole point we're recording this stuff and then indexing it so you can go back and find it. If it's not indexed, it doesn't no good either. So that's kind of where all that stuff's at. So when you say a cheap eBay antenna, is that what you're calling that?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Is this like one of those survey grade antennas, or is this like a patch antenna?
Yeah.
Or
It would have been one of those white, 6-inch globe.
okay. And if you,
GNSS survey grade, but it didn't come from a name manufacturer.
Yeah, all of my stuff. Well, I bought one directly from China, and it seemed to work just fine. And then I bought 2 of them from RG Simple, and they're probably just going out to the same people in China and buying them and reselling them. So it's not there's really nothing name brand about that either. So I do have one around. I think it's not Trimble. It was yeah. Anyway, it was
Garmin?
like no, it's it doesn't. It's something they used at Danfoss one time. One day we went up on the roof to see what the configuration was, and there's one just laying on the ground there. And the guy says, you may as well take that with you because it's just laying there out in the elements. And so I brought it home with him, and later I found out it ended up in a box of stuff I took home, and it was like originally I looked at it was like a $700 antenna or something, and I've never figured out how do I. Theoretically, you could connect one up and get a bunch of stats on it like you were just doing, and then unplug that and plug the other one in and see it, as it see more satellites, as have more signal strength or whatever. So I think part of it is internally inside the antenna, they got different like wave guides and all kinds of fancy things in there, so their company patented ways to do certain things. And it could be that, yes, if you pay more money for it, it works better. But up to this point, just whatever I could get on either eBay or from RG Simple, to me, that the stuff seems to work, and I've been relatively happy with all this stuff. And I also, the last time around, I got some of the little patch antennas from RG Simple. They said, oh, I think they're going to throw them in for free, or if I buy one for $45, they give me free shipping or something. So I ended up with 2 of those, and I haven't compared those against the survey grade antennas either. So that's something else I could try if I had the ambition and I could figure out, what should you look for? And I don't even know. Probably if I go out and search and say, how do you compare these antennas? Or, say somebody saying, I compared this and this and this. Say, how does a U-blocks patch antenna compare to a survey grade antenna? It could be, other people have already done this, and they can tell me what I would need to know without having to trying to do it myself. So anyway, that's just something else that could be put on the list someday to look at.
Sounds good. think I'm all set.
I guess I'm all set too. Let's see, we're not sharing, right? I hope I haven't been sharing this whole time, so. Share screen. Okay, so anyway, I guess I'm done too, so I'm gonna kill the thing. Nope, don't want to do that. I want to say stop.